What's happening, fam? L.A.R movement still moving. The book is entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father at Amazon, Kindle, and Create Space. A link will be in the description box below, as usual. This video is entitled Fear of a Messiah. Some of y'all probably didn't know this, but during the civil rights movement, they were having they brought out the paperwork sometime later that part of the issue with like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, Fred Hampton and all that was the government's fear of a Messiah. And every time somebody, you could say, rises up and is championed by the people, they become enemy of the state. And I thought about this in a few different ways, because in some ways this is why people are so dismissive of people. What I mean by that is, this is why people are considered crazy, or they put people in a box, or they demonize people, or crucify them in the court of public opinion, right? And I think people don't think about this as much, because you have the one, because it was a governmental fear. I would say then, I think it's still a governmental fear now, because it's not as much going on with the murdering and assassinating of people, but there's definitely a constant attack on the idea that somebody will change, it will turn the tide of the country or the world. Like one man will make a difference that'll just throw this society's comfort on its axis, right? So spiritually, I thought about it, and I think about that as, to have a fear of a Messiah in a Christian, quote unquote, Christian nation would really speak to the fact that this is a devilish country, because people who believe in God and believe in, say, the resurrection and Jesus coming back and all of that good stuff wouldn't be scared that he was coming back, or that a Messiah would appear, if they were on the same side of that Messiah, if they were good and righteous themselves, right? So to have this fear would also kind of hearken to the fact that these people are scared because a Messiah is an enemy, because good and evil aren't friends. Another thing about that is, I thought about it as, it's a reason why power, money, everything in life is passed down, and they find new people, whether they're family or just people with like-minded beliefs, to pass down this system to maintain the status quo for future generations after death. And I wonder, people talk about the afterlife, and even reincarnation, and everything in this world being cyclical, and it dying and resurrecting, or coming back later. And I thought about this by saying, you know, to be to have a fear of a Messiah would also say that you have to believe in the afterlife and resurrection. Not resurrection, but reincarnation, because you have to keep the system a certain way to make sure that if you were ever to come back, things will be in place that'll keep you comfortable, or in some way comfortable, right? And then I thought about the part where we talk about things like, people are awakening and people's third eye, and our people are in a slumber. And that's the more awakened people. I don't think it's just consciousness politically. I don't think it's just consciousness spiritually. I don't think it's just consciousness in the physically. I think there's a connection with a higher power that it takes the mind, body, and soul to be unified to actually connect to. So until you are conscious in those three things and able to maneuver those simultaneously in the right manner, you will never be able to gain a true connection with the higher power to understand, to really get a clear view with your third eye, right? Now, that also makes me think about, are we just as lazy because is that ideology of a Messiah coming part of the reason why we in some ways are aloof? Because somebody's coming. We just know somebody's coming, and if the part of Christianity, it could be a double-edged sword, because on one end we're lazy because we know somebody's coming, and on the other end people are proactively trying to destroy us, because if they can keep us at a certain level, maybe they can hold off that Messiah ever coming, right? So I think about things like this. Plus, nobody knows the information that's really in the vaults of the Vatican. So why collect all of this stuff about spirituality and religion, right? And hide it from the world if God is so important? Just in my opinion, that doesn't make sense unless you're trying to manipulate God for your own use, which is what a lot of people always think anyways. So fear of a Messiah, right? The other thing that I also thought about was because of how society works, you see these great strides being made in short amounts of time, and a Messiah could spark a situation where something that can happen overnight can change the world to the point where all the comforts, where the meek shall inherit the earth. I mean, I think the fear that a Messiah will return and make sure the meek inherit the earth, and those scriptures about take you to a land of milk and honey, and the houses will already be built. I mean, you could I think the fear of a Messiah means that this country is already built, even though our ancestors built it or whatever, and thus all of the things are already built up. So if a Messiah was to return and get rid of whoever caused all the death and destruction, then the world is be ours for the taking, or inheriting, or rightfully returned to, however you want to look at it, right? And maybe the fight is to make sure that never happens. But that's my thoughts about, fear, the fear of a Messiah. We out. Peace.